Hello and welcome back. This episode will be about operators. Add, subtract and those type of things. Also, different ways of doing so. Let's go! Don't forget this channel have a dedicated Discord server. It's a place where you can talk about the episodes and tutorials of this channel. Maybe you wonder something about the last episode that was a bit unclear. Or maybe you just want to say hello. And for those who wish to go the extra mile to support the channel, there's a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page, and also there's a membership option here on YouTube. Thank you. When we are working with variables, we can assign them values, just like this. Integer a equals 10. But what if we want to take a integer and add it together with another integer? But can we add two integer variables together and store it in a third one? Of course we can. Integer b is equal to 15, and then integer c equals a plus b. And we can just make sure this is whatever we think it's going to be, 25, printing out the number or variable c. And it disappeared, and 25. 10 plus 15 is 25. Yeah, that makes sense. But what if we don't want to give c a value right away? We just want to declare it. We can do that too by going just like that. We declared it, but then later down our code, after we've done something, whatever, we add or give c some value equals 10. Sure, this works too. And then we run it. Now we're just setting c equals 10, just like we can do with any type of variable. Absolutely, we can declare it and then we can give it a value later. How do we keep adding value now to c even though we have already assigned it a value? Can we increase it over time? Absolutely. We can say c is equal to c plus 10. So now c should be 20. And this can go on as long as we want, c plus 22. And that works too. Perfect. But this is one way of writing it. We can also write it as c plus equals 22 is the same as writing c equals c plus 22. We simply put the plus before the equal sign and then add or remove or whatever. And if we wanted to remove some value, then we of course say c minus equals 10. That should now be 32, and it works too. Perfect. And we also can go c times equal, let's go 5. That is c times 5, so to speak. So if we run it now, then we get a much bigger number. That is the same as saying c equals c times 5. So yeah, that works perfectly. But if we add division here, I'm just going to put it underneath here so we can see the number or value before and then after we divide it by something. So c divide equal, and then let's divide it by 10. Now we add a scissor, and then we add c and see what the value is now. So c was 160 here. Then we divide it by 10, and now we have 16. So division works too, but one thing to keep in mind is if there would be any type of decimals when we run it, they will not show. 160 divided by 15 is actually 10.66666. So the decimal just disappears. Just to keep in mind that an integer divided by another integer can result in floats. So if there are any type of decimals, those decimals simply disappear and you only store the whole number in the variable c in this case. We also have one more operator. We covered plus, minus, multiplication and division. There's one more that we can use that is very useful when it comes to programming. And that's the one called Modulus. It's a percent symbol when it comes to your keyboard. And that one works almost the same as division, but instead of giving you the answer, it gives you the remainder. So yeah, that's how the modulus operator works, which is a really useful tool when you are coding. Sometimes you only want to increase or decrease a number by 1 every time you call it. And you can, of course, go integer a equals, let's say 10, then a minus equals 1. Or if you wanted to go the long way, then a equals a minus 1. That works too. It's the same operation you're doing here. Or you could just say a minus minus. And you can also say minus minus a. It's a bit different. This one removes after you used it or in the command. This one, do it before. Here we remove it before, here we remove it after. And just to demonstrate this, let's remove this for now. A, we start which is 10. So we go sudo a minus minus. This will now return 10 because we removed it after. So if you go sudo again and say a, we should have 9. Perfect. But if we set the minus before, we will see 9, 9. So that's a way of removing or increasing as well. We could go increase before or after the use of that variable. And this only works with +1 or -1. How can we add an integer with a float or with a double or even with a double and then another float and another number and so on and so on? How do we do this? Well, here is where casting comes in. Let's say I have a variable int new number and I want to add our integer number here and our float here. Then I just say equal number plus the number with decimals, right? Nope, I get an error. That's because the sum of this, now we are just using addition, but multiplication, subtraction, and division works the same. And if it contains decimals, we cannot store it inside a integer. So if we want to store this and be precise, this is its exact value or result or whatever, we need to store it in a float. But maybe we don't care about the decimals, we just want the whole numbers. We can do that too. We then only, parentheses, recast the variable into an integer. And if we had more, let's say plus 10.5 float, plus 10 point, now that is a double, because it has more decimals. Now we either need to copy this and put that in front of everyone, but then we remove this, and then we remove this. Another way of doing it is by not recasting them individually. It is by adding all of this together and get the sum of it, and then just recast the sum into an integer. And the same applies for a float. F number, float number, is equal to, we take this one, which is a float, and we take the variable, more decimals, which is a double, and then we add it. We're also going to get an error. That's because this is a double and this is a float. So we have an option here again. We can recast this into a float, or we can cast this into a double. Both works, it all depends on what you're trying to do. Something you cannot do though is that you cannot take, for example, a byte, A is equal to 22, and then A plus equals number. This will return in a very weird result. You don't get any errors doing this, but if I print this out, A, you're gonna see some weird number, minus 89. Consider our integer a big water barrel. It contains a lot of water. And your byte is a small coffee cup. So now you're taking this giant water barrel and you're adding it to the coffee cup, but it overflows right away. So you take the water cup, throw away the water, and now you can fill it again, but it fills up right away. So you toss out the water again, and you keep doing this until your water barrel is empty. That's why you get very weird result when you go over or under the max and minimum values of a variable. So don't do that. And the same applies for putting a long inside a integer, an integer in a short into a byte, and so on and so on. We have only been talking about numbers so far, adding, multiplication, and so on and so on. Can you add strings together? Well, yes, you can. Let's create another string here. String A equals hello. And I want to add text with A and store it in another string. Absolutely. String B equals text plus A. And then we can add a suso here and just check for B what the result is. It should be, this is a text, and right away we should see hello. This is a text, hello. And of course there is no limit to this. You can add another hello. Let's add a space here. So if I run it now, then we should see the same but with another hello. And because string is a class, then you can go dot concat and then add something else. Let's add world and see what happens. And let's add a space there so we get some space. So we can add it variable or plus a string. And we can also go dot concat, which is the preferred way of doing it. So if you want to add strings together, you should stick to dot concat. So for example, string C equals hello dot concat. We add a space, then dot concat, and we can add as many as we want. World dot concat, and then just like so. And that gives me an error. Why? Oh, correct spelling does help. So suso C. And let's see the result. So the first printout is this one, and the second one is this one. And of course you can already use a variable, a string variable. So concat text. And if we run it now, hello world, this is a text. So this is how you add strings together. This of course only works when you're trying to add strings together. You cannot remove it like numbers. Alright you guys, that was a lot of information, but you can always come back to this video and rewatch it if you need. Thank you guys for watching, have a great day now, cheers.